This is just stupid. So the four monsters resume the party, and Turon doesn't quite get what Aki said he was gonna get her, which was the Pluie. Yeah. But it turns out to not be a Pluie, although it kind of looks like a demented Mr. Potato Head. Well, anyway, in the next chapter, James and Aki are wrestling, and even causes Aki to transform into his direwolf form, and he proceeds to knock James to the ground in that form, and manages to win the arm wrestle, and then it turns out that the whole reason they were arm wrestling in the first place was over the last piece of fried chicken, which Turon decided to eat while the two were arm wrestling. And then there's like some weird joke where threatens to rip her panties off, and then Turon replies, "If you're going to harass me, can't you do something cuter like flip my skirt up?" And then Mummy proceeds to remark that Turon doesn't have any panties. Okay, this conversation is getting really awkward. Anyway, Aki falls asleep. Mummy remarks that there's a fairy in that forest, and then they come across one. And unlike Aki and James's imagined depiction of a fairy, which of course is a sexy lady, it's an old hag named Kyo. And then after initial introductions, Kyo decides to take them with her to where they're gathering monsters for some reason, under the promise of food. Later on, it turns out that she's leading them to a rally of monsters who are planning to go to war with the humans. And their banner is a combination of the male and female figures that you see on public restrooms for some reason. And who is the leader of this anti-human monster campaign? Bacon! Who is a ghost. Bacon. Your name is Bacon. Was your mother named Sow and your father Grease? Who names their kid Bacon? And parents aside, that's not a very threatening name, considering that he's clearly evil. Do you see what I mean by schlock? I mean, this is clearly not Mishima's best work. And I don't know if it was because he was just sort of bored and just wanted to do something before his next biggest work, which he thought was Fairy Tail, or the fact that the Kodansha Comics was stupid enough to publish this. I mean, this manga makes, I hate to say this, but this manga makes Soul Eater look like genius in comparison. I mean, okay, sure, I don't like Soul Eater, but at least it created a world that was both unique and spooky, and it had characters that matched that world pretty well. But in this case, the monsters don't really match the world itself is very bland. There's just nothing really special about it that makes it uniquely monster-oriented. And the monsters that are featured are clearly based on classic Halloween-themed monsters, but some of them don't even resemble their actual original counterparts, like Turon, and then they just flat out make up monsters like Aki. And it's like it's neither unique and it's not really spooky either. It just feels bland and generic, and it's just like, come on, Mishima, you have the potential to make this good. Make it good. For starters, come up with better names, for crying out loud, and come up with a more interesting world. Anyway, so Bacon is rallying the monsters to revolution against the humans because he's sick and tired of being pushed around by humans and sick of seeing monsters like himself, being pushed around by humans and thinks it's about time that another war is waged upon them. And then he takes notice of the Black Heirs and thinks that they want to join him, but don't express any interest. And then when he asks them why they don't want to join him, Mummy says that it's because humans aren't evil. Okay, the only human characters we've been introduced so far are a couple of idiotic poachers and their idiotic friends who were also poachers. Now, where are these good humans that you speak of, Mommy? Because clearly the manga has not shown any good humans thus far. That's not a really good excuse if you don't have the actual proof, but considering that they're like this former monster military elite group, I don't know if any humans would even be nice to them. Oh yeah, and then there's this whole thing where Aki is like starving, and so he's pissed off that they don't have food, and so he decides to break Bacon's revolutionary flag to make a point, but all he does is just piss off all the other monsters. And then, just as the other Black Heirs are about to fight against the other monsters, Kyo casts fairy powder on all four of them, which causes them in turn to be knocked out, while a more younger and pretty looking fairy watches from a distance. So the four wake up in a cell, and they're just wondering what the hell to do, when that beautiful fairy somehow pops in, and as the subtitle explains, her name is Jenny, and James automatically falls in love with her. And so she leads them to safety and explains that the old hag of a fairy is her mother, and she felt sorry for them, and so she let them go, and explains that her mother wasn't always revolutionary, neither were the other monsters in this forest, but as soon as Bacon came into the picture, everyone started acting kind of crazy. And so she tells them to leave and that she'll wait for the inevitable, but then Aki decides to stick around, and so do the others, and they decide to stop Bacon. Then just as Bacon commands his troops to go after the evil humans, the Black Heirs show up to stop them. But before Kyo can knock them out with her fairy powder, Turon throws a sand harp for some reason and plays music on it that repels Kyo's sleeping powder for some reason, and Black Heirs defeat the revolutionaries, and James, who's all pissed off at Bacon, proceeds to knock Bacon into the air with his flying fist of doom, and then Aki proceeds to do a Uzumaki type attack and dive bomb down on Bacon, vanquishing him for all. Anyway, so after Bacon is defeated, everybody's all wondering what the fuck just happened, because it turns out that Bacon had actually brainwashed everybody. And then after he goes into a brief backstory where his parents were killed in the war, and that was why he wanted to go to war against humans, and Mummy tells him that war is stupid, and true revolution doesn't require battle, but actual cooperation between the races, and then, Bacon consents and then sporadically tells Aki that there was a two-headed monster looking for him, and then he walks away. Wow, what an anticlimactic ending. Again, Mishima, you had the potential to create a really interesting story, but no, you decided to cut it off short and have the bad guy make amends to his... I guess he just didn't like the fact that the guy was named Bacon. At the mention of the two-headed monster that Bacon mentioned, all the monsters suddenly flinch because it means that Garu Elf is nearby, and apparently he's bad, and then James proposes to Jenny, but it turns out that she has a boyfriend who looks like this ugly-ass hippie guy.